Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please forgive our delay in starting. We had a extended previous committee meeting, but we thank you all for being in attendance this afternoon. Welcome back, those of you who are ready to start school. But before we begin, we will have, want to admonish everyone that if you have any electronic devices, please turn them off so that we do not have any disturbances during our meeting. If you're asked to speak, or board members, we ask that you please speak into the mic so that we can hear you clearly, so that your comments can be recorded accurately for the record. With us today, we have the all-female color guard from White Knoll High School. They look sharp, and they're going to post our colors for us.
Detail. Halt. Ready. Face. Present. Arms.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carry. Colors. Ready. Post. About face. Right. Face. Forward. March.
Those ladies are under the leadership of First Sergeant David Pelly. Again, they are the Naval JRTC from White Knolls High School in Lexington School District 1. So I'm sorry, I just love it when ladies. Let's give them one more round of applause. At this time, we'd like to welcome one of our new state board members, Mr. John Stephen English with the 11th Judicial Circuit. Welcome. Do you have anything you want to share with us at this time?
I'm just honored to be part of this group, and hope I can be helpful in some way.
Thank you so much. Again, welcome, and we'll try to make this one quick and painless for you if we can help it. If I could entertain a motion for the approval of our minutes from our June meeting. Any objection to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll approve them with unanimous consent. Is there any objection to the approval of the agenda as it's been presented? Do we have one correction with the? Okay. Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. We do have visiting with us this afternoon. Put my glasses on. We have, I can't read this. Is the last name?
I think that's Mr. Rainwater, isn't it?
No, boy. From the
From
Renaissance.
Renaissance?
From Renaissance.
Yes.
Difficult to read.
Could you please stand and I cannot read this name, I'm sorry. Lori Borkin? Okay, welcome. And we have Lisa Jolliffe from RFA, which stands for? Welcome. And Jasmine Shaw of OSF.
Yes. She's good.
Hi.
She's one of us.
And we have Sue Rawls of Riverside. Hi, how are you? Thank you. Welcome to the board meeting today. We're going, as far as our chair report is concerned, just want to welcome everyone back. I'm sorry, we do not have any media with us. Any media, I didn't see where any had signed up. No news media with us. As far as my report, nothing special except to say it's a new school year. Teachers should be back in the classroom. I unfortunately got to miss my first day of staff development in my new district, but I want you to know I sacrificed to be with you. You're welcome. But other than that, I'm excited about the school year, and as I've said in the past, if you haven't had an opportunity to visit a school in your district, board members, please go by and just let them know that you're here and we're working hard for them. I will now yield my time to our superintendent, Dr.
you.
Molly Spear.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your July break. We were busy working here at the department. Before I begin today, I would like to ask your courtesy in a moment of silence in memory of a dear friend and a dedicated educator who was killed in a car accident on Friday night, Dr. Betty Jo Hall. Betty Jo had over 40 years of service to students in South Carolina in the Abbeville and McCormick, Greenwood area. She and her husband, Wally, who is also an educator, was injured, but I learned last night that Wally has been released from the hospital. And a very bright, talented young man, Savion White, an 18-year-old who graduated South Point High School, was in a fatality in the other car, headed to Newberry College, where he was about to begin his career on a football scholarship. So very sad, and our hearts are broken, and I'd ask us to pause in a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. So we've had a busy summer, a great event over in Aiken County a few days ago. I want to thank LaVonda in our Office of Family and Community Engagement for this new category where we can recognize schools, Purple Star schools that are extra military friendly. And this is a new something that we learned about that another state was doing, and we quickly learned to what had to be done. These schools have to go through training for their staff. They have to provide a liaison in their district for military families. They have to put in place student ambassadors who will welcome military students as they arrive at their school and have some extra counseling, and agree that courses would be able to transfer very quickly into their system. A number of things that we should be doing anyway, but these schools definitely have gone beyond the call of duty. And our first two districts in the state to receive the category not only of Purple Star schools, but Purple Star districts are Aiken County Public School District, Dr. Sean Alford, and Richland School District 2, Dr. Barron Davis. So we had a wonderful event. They'll be receiving a banner that looks something like that to fly at their school to show this designation. And all of this is in our hopes to be a very military-friendly state and do everything we can to support our armed services. So that was very exciting. We've been awaiting the announcement of the Volkswagen Settlement Fund. South Carolina is receiving about $34 million from this settlement. It has to be used to replace vehicles, some type of vehicle, be it a bus or a boat or whatever, cars that are emitting high nitric oxide. We qualified, believe it or not. Our old buses qualified. And so we, in the first announcement of the first $10 million, we received $7.8 million, and that will buy 78 new propane school buses. These are the places that those buses will be sent. They won't be distributed across the state because propane requires a certain infrastructure for fueling. So we put those, we're trying to cluster these buses. And so we're very excited about this, and we look forward to receiving those buses sometime over in the early spring and getting those buses on the road. And we're also looking forward to the next two announcements for the additional $20 million that will be handed out from the Department of Insurance. So that was exciting news. The legislature asked us to do a paperwork reduction survey, which we completed. We had over 5,000 teachers participate in that, almost 6,000 actually. I round up, 5,900 educators. That's close to 6,000 responded to our survey that came in by August the 1st. And we have 5 recommendations from the survey. South Carolina should continue to address the state's growing teacher recruitment and retention issue. That's for sure. Education policy-making bodies should limit the number of school district and state initiatives introduced to avoid overwhelming teachers with new paperwork. Contract days and compensation should be extended to account for current paperwork and other administrative requirements. And the Department of Education, working with school districts, should further examine the top-ranked issues identified by educators to develop best practices and templates that are available for all educators. We found that a lot of the concerns were paperwork within the district, not necessarily tied to the department, but we know that it could be that we're involved with that, but we want to help school districts use best practices. And then also the department should continue to streamline processes and integrate or consolidate reporting systems at the state level. And we are definitely working on that. Our deputies have been meeting and our directors are very involved so that we come up with a uniform reporting system and monitoring system, particularly with our federal programs, to cut down unnecessary trips of us going into districts and burdening districts when they've got a lot of work to do. We need to do that in a better, efficient way. So we're working on that. So it was a good process. And now, for the real special part of my report, we do have a very, very special guest today, our 2020 South Carolina Teacher of the Year, who was announced in May at a gala event. Her name is Shonda Jefferson. Shonda, stand up with that bright smile and look at JR is grinning. From none other than the wonderful Fairfield Central High School in Fairfield School District. She is our 2020 State Teacher of the Year. She is a biology teacher at Fairfield Central High. I had a chance to be in her classroom, and you could see why the students are engaged and love her as a teacher. She'll serve as an ambassador for this year for SARA, Center for Educator Recruitment Retention, where she'll provide mentoring, speaking engagements, work with teacher cadets, teaching fellows, lead the state teacher forum, and just be an all-around wonderful ambassador for education in our state. So, Shonda, we're so glad you're here. Please come to the mic and share with us your thoughts.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am grateful to stand before the distinguished members of the South Carolina Board of Education. Thank you, Superintendent Spearman, for recognizing me and allowing me to have this opportunity to share. I would also like to recognize the 2020 Honor Roll teachers in their absence for the tremendous work that they do and going above and beyond to meet the needs of their students on a daily basis. Tamara Cox, Sue Weems, Shelley Smith, and Stephanie Heckrell. Special shout out to my superintendent, Dr. J.R. Green,
Yes.
who has always been supportive of my innovative ideas to enhance the learning experiences of students in Fairfield County School District. As a proud product of the South Carolina public education system, I was raised in Beach Island, South Carolina, and from an early age, my mother and my siblings taught me to value education. I fell in love with schools, teaching and learning in the Aiken County public school system. The night before school always felt like the night before Christmas for me. I was ready for new experiences and learning new information presented by my teachers because the knowledge they shared with me gave me hope. Jonas Salk once said, "Hope lies in dreams, in imaginations, and in the courage of those who dare to make dreams into reality." That same hope is the hope that I try to instill in my students on a daily basis. My entire teaching career has been dedicated to serving students in high populations of economically disadvantaged and historically underserved students. I have served in urban areas and rural school districts in South Carolina. Over the years, I've entered classrooms and encountered students from broken homes. They've entered the classrooms hungry, needing clean clothes and shoes, homeless, hurting, and longing for love and attention. Students in poverty experience extreme trauma, and it takes a special person and a special heart to teach them what is mandated by the state and also the skills that they need to survive. I spent many late nights and long days at school creating authentic lessons and hands-on science activities that are relevant to students' lives. I created tutorial programs to give students the extra time they needed to learn all curriculum requirements at their own pace. Most importantly, I create a family culture in my classroom that focuses on building relationships and caters to developing the whole child. As a result of building relationships, my kids, I love them, I encourage them, and I remind them every day that where they come from doesn't dictate where they go or what they can achieve. So because of that, I can share some of their stories. I taught Adrian in 9th and 12th grade, and he was the first to pass an AP exam in over 20 years when I taught in an inner city school. After high school, he went to college to major in bioengineering. Quita, she was one of my students, and now she resides in North Dakota. She's pursuing nursing right now, but there were nights that I filled her neighbor's refrigerator with food when their family's lights were out. And I also remember Hezekiah. His home life was unstable, and he was one of the students that told me, being in your classroom and being in your space, that's one of the only spaces that I felt was safe, and it was a welcoming environment. These are a few examples of the many challenges students are facing in schools across our state, and teachers show up for them every day. Teachers working in underserved schools rarely receive recognition for their commitment and dedication because it's often not seen in the numbers on the school report card. I hope that one day we're able to showcase the awesome things that they're doing inside of their classroom, and it's not just dictated by the numbers that we see on the school report card. So that leads to my desires as the South Carolina 2020 Teacher of the Year. I look forward to serving as a representative, an ambassador, and an advocate for teachers and students across our great state. I'm excited about visiting the amazing schools throughout the state and celebrating the magic that is happening in South Carolina classrooms, especially for those districts that have a negative narrative. I also look forward to collaborating with Sarah to retain and recruit teachers and diversify the teacher workforce. I'm also excited about sharing STEM resources with teachers so that our students have access to compete at national and global levels, or have opportunities to compete at national and global levels and competitions. Lastly, I would like to work on an initiative to soften the lines between all educational stakeholders through appreciative inquiry and facilitating an open space session where we share ideas and insights to develop teacher-led solutions and innovation for education in South Carolina. Thank you.
Beautiful. Shonda, thank you so much. We look forward to working with you, and you are just a fabulous example of the great teachers that we have in our state. I visited in her classroom, and was it in Iguana? Yeah, whatever. It was some kind of little dragon that she had. Who's taking care of that for you now? You have it at home. Okay, good. But she's just a great example of the wonderful teachers, and our teachers most of them came back to work yesterday. And their districts are starting that week of professional development and getting ready for the students to arrive next week. So our thoughts and prayers and appreciation are with all of our teachers and educators out there, and we wish them the best year ever. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we now have a special report. We'll hear a report from Mr. Frank Rainwater. He's the Executive Director of the South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office, and it's related to new education, the funding formula for South Carolina. Welcome, Mr. Rainwater.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Superintendent, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here. You gave me a tough act to follow here. Yes. I don't know how I can be be as entertaining as that. We have for you a presentation that I have shared with the school superintendent, school finance officers, the EOC. I am not going to go through that page by page with you. It has taken me at least an hour and 15 minutes to do that. I will make myself available to any questions you have now or afterwards or any follow-up you would like to do. But I'm going to take a few minutes and kind of highlight where we are with this. We've done a lot of research, and we're still pretty early on in this, and there will be more input later. But let me share with you some of the key findings that we have, or the key approaches in here. First, I have to express our appreciation to State Superintendent Molly Spearman and her staff. They have been a great resource, Nancy Williams and others in particular here. We have bombarded with the questions, and we keep asking, and they keep working hard to try to get us the answer. The reason is our goal is in this report we're going to come out with, we want it to be data-driven, either on the assumptions we make or the conclusions we make. We want to have some basis in facts. We're not there yet to describe what the ideal situation is. We're trying to get our handle on where the districts are, where the state is, who's providing what, who's at different level of services. And they've been very helpful, and we're still trying to get that data. But also, we've been working very hard to get this data, financial data, to establish a baseline. Where are we? Because we want to take this baseline not only to compare where South Carolina is, but maybe where you would like to go if you feel like we need to add additional services. But also when we start comparing districts there. So when we start making conclusions, and I can say, well, one district has a lower student-teacher ratio than another district, or you're getting more state money, we got to have the facts there to do that. And once we have the firm foundation, we want to build upon that based upon input from y'all, legislators, whoever, whether you're going to increase teacher salaries or lower teacher ratios, we'll be able to analyze that impact on a more timely basis for you. The two basic charges we were given in all this, one is a more equitable funding throughout the state for public education. And secondly, most importantly, can we make public education easier to explain in budget for, so what the members understand, what the expectations are, how does that flow through the budget process, through your district, down to the school level. So we're trying to develop the right markers to identify that. So when we talk about equity, there are two big things going on in here. The tax base in South Carolina is shifting. The richer districts are getting richer from a property tax base, and the poor districts are getting poor. We have some districts where the value of $1 million, when you raise that millage rate, and that's something else our office do, we calculate the millage rate limitations on the school districts. To raise $1 million, if you increase $1 million in some counties, we've got about 5 counties, that mill generates over $1 million. We have a handful of other counties where $1 million won't even pay for half of a teacher. So the importance of equity on any funding decisions you make in the state, how that state money is allocated, and the impact on the districts is important, and we're looking at that. And that'll be part of our report when we get to the final, when we get to the end of all this. In the other part, what we're trying to do, a simpler method. As an economist, I'm looking at this as a basket of goods. What type of goods? If it's going to cost to educate a kid $6,000, what can you reasonably expect to get for $6,000? How many teachers does that get you? What's the student-teacher ratio? How much are you paying that teacher? How much are fringe benefits? How much are retirement? How much are those growing costs out there? How much technology? And again, we need this data to be able to measure that, and so we can compare the districts on a side-by-side. We can come out with a number now. I can take the state budget and I can divide it out and do the simple math and say that's $4,000 a student, but that really doesn't give you an idea of what you can buy with that. So we're working very hard to develop these, to model, so everybody understands what you get for this basket of goods. Again, we're very early on. We're looking at basic K through 12. This is not a comprehensive study yet. We haven't gotten into charter schools. How do you fund charter schools? That's really a different question. I'm not looking at 4-year-old programs. I'm not looking at adult ed, but we're looking at that basic K through 12 program for the 700,000 students that we have. So I've talked about the market basket. What do we get for this basket of goods? How much does it cost? What can you put in this basket? Our theme behind this is that students drive the need for resources. And as our previous speaker just mentioned, that kids in poverty require maybe more resources than those other kids. And that's one of the things we're looking at. So when we're talking about students need to drive the need for resources, different students need different resources. We're looking at special ed as a separate category. If you're fortunate, like my kids, they just needed me to stay on them to do well in school. They didn't need much more than the teacher in the school to work on that, but that's not all the kids. Some kids require special education. My wife is a speech language pathologist in one of the districts. That's an additional resource some students require. Some other students require additional resources, physical therapy, guidance, and others. So we're trying to measure what is the demand for resources these students have. When we looked at poverty is something else. Maybe when we look at poverty, those kids in poverty, we need a lower student-teacher ratio. In a regular classroom, maybe 20 to 1 is okay in some districts, but maybe in a poverty area, you need a 16 to 1 with more of the ideal funding. So again, we're trying to get the data to see what do we have, what resources do these students require. And again, we're starting with the basic concept and kind of see where we are in South Carolina.
Frank, excuse me just
Yes,
a
ma'am.
minute, Chair. Do you need us to move slides, or have you got a clicker there?
Yeah, I've got a clicker.
Okay.
I
There you
try
go.
not to, out of
Okay.
respect to your time, but I'll just go back
That's
a little
fine.
bit. But here, like, for example, this chart on this page here, this shows the value of the meal. And again, you see the disparity there on how much each district is going to come up with. So how do you maintain local flexibility but respect the level of the state funding on that? Just different data that we have there showing values. And again, I don't want to take a lot of time because you got a very heavy agenda, but this information is there. I will point out this one, facilities is something we're looking at. This is the estimated debt service to build a $20 million facility. And I've had some superintendents laugh and say, what do you get for $20 million? But just to run this calculation here, for a $20 million facility, some districts have to have almost 200 meals to do that. Some districts can do that for almost a meal. So again, that's some of the inequities there that we're looking at and trying to get there on that. Just to kind of show you where we are on some things here. Instruction, when we look at our model, this basket of goods, we've got basically 3 baskets we're looking at and trying to fund here. What's an instructional basket? What goods do you put in this instructional basket? The other 2 baskets are district services and facilities. The way I'm looking at this is that if you have a student, you have to have a facility there ready, prepared, be ready to open its doors before that first student enters the door. Well, that's a fixed cost. You got to have facilities, you got to have security, you got to have internet. So we're trying to come up with the cost of that. District services, what does it take behind that? This is the one I'll talk about with a little bit you is instruction here. We're breaking out instruction in different categories. You have your basic instruction. What is that classroom teacher? How many classroom teachers do you need? Depends on how many students you have and the student-teacher ratios you want to achieve. And again, we're going to try to establish the baseline. Instructional support, we're trying to determine how much money is being spent for speech therapists and the other activities, guidance counselors, psychologists. What are those ratios? Because from an equity standpoint, we want to make sure the state is targeting the right level in every district. Now, the question comes up is maybe you want to have some flexibility in the districts, and we may fund you a guidance counselor for every 350 students. Well, maybe you decide you don't need that many. Maybe you want to use some of that money to hire an aide or homework or something else that'll make a difference. Those are some of the issues that'll be dealt with later on where do you give the flexibility. But these are some of the major categories we're looking at when we talk about a basket of goods. How many teachers does it take to provide instruction? What is additional instructional help that's needed? Instructional support like speech therapists, guidance counselors, special ed students. Vocational is a separate category. We're trying to look at that. How many kids are in vocational program? What type of additional resources? Not everybody is going to be geared for a K through 12 program and go on to college. So if it's a different resource outside that normal model, what do we need for vocation? We're grouping health and social workers in there. Some districts hire social workers, some districts don't have social workers, some contract out or done separately. Again, we're trying to identify what resources are being provided, what's the baseline for South Carolina. IT is something else we're looking at. How much IT support is needed? It's not currently part of the base student cost, but is it something that should be? A lot of school districts provide Chromebooks for kids. I don't know how many do, how many don't, but again, we're trying to establish a baseline. And then school administration. We're looking, obviously you got to have that principal and that leadership there within the school once those school doors are open. We consider that part of the instructional cost. But determining these ratios will depend on the data that we get. Again, how many students do you need? A wealthier district obviously can do more, but I think from a state's responsibility, we want to make sure there's some equity in there. So we're trying to get the data to categorize all these programs and kind of figure out where we are now. And then are we going to reallocate state money? We're going to add state money? Where do we add that state money and for what? So our approach is to try to explain to the General Assembly, well, if you have 700,000 students and you want a 20-to-1 teacher ratio, you need, I don't know, whatever that is, 35,000 teachers or whatever. If you want a lower ratio, well, that's more teachers times their salary. If you need more special ed. So we're kind of categorize that as a logical step through. And again, the department's been very helpful in trying to help us to get the data from the 81 school districts on that. I'll flip to, let me just flip through teacher salaries here. One thing we're really looking at is teacher salaries. This chart here, I can't see the page number, 24, I believe.
24, yeah.
24. We've done some analysis on teacher salaries. There's a lot of debate about teacher salaries, and what this chart here is one way to compare teacher salaries by their by their pay schedule to different government and private sector workers. And what this chart shows you here is the bachelor's degree, just a bachelor's degree teachers. You have about 28% of our, is that right? 28% of our teachers just have a bachelor's degree. Their average salary is less than $40,000 in this state. On the state minimum salary schedule, I've excluded the salary supplement. Compared to the average wage of a government worker in South Carolina with a bachelor's degree, they get paid a little bit more. They get paid about about $36,000. And you see how that stair steps up on the blue charts. A bachelor's plus 18, the average is a little bit more. That's another 8% of our teachers. So you've got over a third of our teachers down that lower end of the schedule. The blue line in the middle, that is the average teacher salary in South Carolina, about $50,000. So the average bachelor's degree and the average bachelor's plus 18 is below the average teacher salary in this state. And you just see the comparison there. The doctorates are doing much better, but that's about 1.5% of our teachers. So we're trying to look at this analysis different ways. And just for comparison, one of the questions that were asked is that, was it because of the number of days you work? How do you do that if you compare it? Because teachers work 190 days. So we converted it in this next chart. Yeah, here on a daily basis. And if you look at it on a daily basis, teachers do a little bit better compared to the private and public sector. Again, there was a comment made earlier about, I think Ms. Spearman said about additional work days to catch up. That would help improve the salaries and without affecting this particular chart. So again, we've been sharing this data just as information because we want whatever decision the General Assembly makes on our recommendations, whether they like it or don't like it or want a different recommendation, we want people to understand what the data is showing out there. Do you need to change the teacher salary schedule? Does more teachers need more of certain teachers, the lower end of the pay scale need more of an increase than the others? So those are policy decisions. We're trying to stay away from policy decisions. We're just trying to put the data out there, but we're going to identify what we think of the key players out there in the data. So, let's see, just one more thing about teacher salaries. Within this chart, you're going to see this is a master's degree, but we have in there, we broke out the salary schedule by steps for each salary schedule. And you see the progression there. I'm going to go back to this bachelor's teachers because that's the one that, this is page 26. This is the light blue bar represents the state minimum salary schedule for a bachelor's degree teacher by years. The blue bar represents the average state supplement. Some districts don't do a supplement, some districts do more, so we've tried to calculate that in there. And the dotted lines you you see there across the top, again, are the average teacher salary, the government worker with a bachelor's degree, bachelor's degree, private sector, and you see with those teacher salaries. What's interesting to me here, when you look at a bachelor's degree teacher, that is that blue area, that light blue area. A bachelor's degree teacher on the current salary scale never gets to the current South Carolina average. They have to get a local salary supplement. Maybe by year 23, they get to the average teacher salary. The shaded areas represent if you just wanted to extend these salaries, the steps. That's another thing I hear about from the teachers is extending the steps.
Would you say that again, what you said about
On the state minimum salary schedule, a bachelor's degree teacher doesn't reach the average teacher salary in South Carolina. The average teacher salary in South Carolina is $50,000. At 23 years on the state minimum salary schedule, they're only at, I'm sorry, I can't read that. They're somewhere below $50,000.
About 46 or something.
So again, there's a difference there. Is it a structural issue? Is it a funding issue? I mean, I think there's some hard decisions that have to be examined. So is bachelor's degree teacher sufficient? Do you need to reward master's degrees? I mean, those are policy decisions. But again, when you look at the pay schedule, you're trying to recruit teachers, encourage teachers. You got a 30 or 28% of your teachers with a bachelor's degree. To me, that's the big pot you need to pay some attention to. So those are the type of issues we're trying to point out. So that's just some of the data we have in here. I know I'm running short on time, and I don't want to take away, but there are some key decisions that will have to be made. Again, we're still trying to get the data. We're trying to put this basket of goods together and identify the cost, and we're going to wait for the feedback to say, well, I don't like this basket of goods that says a 20-to-1 student-teacher ratio. I like 18 better. Well, it's like the price is right. Well, that's going to cost you a little bit more to do that. Where are your priorities? What's the basket that you need? But part of this is defining what is a state responsibility and what is a local responsibility. For example, right now, we pay teacher salary increases for all the teachers. And when there's a pay raise, Ms. Williams has to help calculate how much it costs to raise teacher salaries. Well, one of the issues in this model is if your district hires more teacher because you're wealthier and you have a lower teacher ratio, should the state be giving you more money to pay for those teachers instead of lowering the ratio for everybody else? So to me, it's an equity problem. We're going to point out some hard questions here, but I think that's the reality of where we are with state resources. One of the big areas that Department of Ed has to help us on is flexibility. Once we come out with a model here, the General Assembly would like to roll up lines. Well, if you roll up lines and say you combine 3 different lines, you can't have all these individual mandates. So what flexibility is going to be acceptable? If we roll up 3 lines and give basically districts a block grant, well, you can't say, well, here's your block grant, but yet you've got to fund this teacher and that teacher and that teacher. You got to give the districts the flexibility to determine what's right for them. And again, that's a policy decision. But again, with the help of the districts and with y'all and others, it's like we're just going to outline these menus. Here's the basket of goods. What do you want to pay for? And this is the trade-off you have with that. And the last big part of all this that we're working on that we haven't got to yet is accountability. What's the expectations? What are the reasonable expectations if you fund districts at $6,000 a student or $8,000 a student? What's a reasonable expectation for results? What is performance? That's an unknown. Again, I mean, we can look at what other states do, what's going on here, but again, we're looking for guidance from policymakers to say what's reasonable, what's the right thing to do. So thank you for your time. I mean, the biggest disconnect we have right now is the information they need for budgeting does really not really exist. There's a lot of data, but we're trying to create a better data stream so people understand what you get for the $2 billion in state aid. How many teachers are you expected to buy? At what price you're going to pay for them? And so we've been working hard with everybody to try to get that. If you want to change the model, if people want to add something in that basket, that'll be easier calculated. We're just trying to create a system for people to understand what's going on in South Carolina, and that's our biggest challenge.
I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Chairman, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Well, first, thank you. That was, you did a masterful job in making something difficult understandable in terms that make sense to us, and you've obviously done great work. Help us, one thing that we do is people ask us questions, help me define what a mill is in simple terms that people would understand, because you get asked, and I have trouble defining that, and you obviously have a gift for defining things. It'd be helpful for us to know how to explain that.
Well, I don't know if it's a gift or maybe because I've done this about a dozen times, I'm getting better. A mill by definition is 1/1000th. So a mill on a property tax, if you take the value of a home, like the taxable value on a home, a mill is 1/1000th of that value. 10 mills would be a hundredth of a percent. 100 mills represents about 10% of the property value. So if your house is assessed, not market, I'm gonna get you, but not market value, but assessed value, it's a percentage of the total. So 1,000 mills would mean you would be paying the property tax equal to the value of your assessed value.
Because I asked that, I saw the things from Charleston where I am, and it's true that property values have gone up a lot, but you can have elderly people there and people who aren't wealthy that their values of their homes have gone up, but their income hasn't. So when we talk about equity, it's also people who maybe have a lot of property value but don't have much money to pay it.
And that particular chart is for, correct me if I'm wrong, it's an EFA, right? So that excludes homes? Yeah. The one on debt includes home, but homeowners don't pay property taxes. So that value you saw for Charleston is without the homeowners.
So that's business only?
That's business, commercial, cars, but business, personal, agricultural, utilities, manufacturing, but there's no homes in that one. So that disparity is probably even greater if we looked at it.
And the follow-up question, how is poverty defined when you do these? What's the definition?
We're looking at the same poverty that's used for the weighting in the EFA right now. I think it's a combination. Those kids in poverty, if they meet certain other free and reduced lunch standards. We have about 70% of our kids in this state are getting a poverty weighting, and that's the ones that we're,
That would
that's the
include
definition
reduced
we're
lunches,
using.
not just free lunches, when you define poverty.
Yes, free and reduced. I'm sorry, this is Lisa Johnson. She's about,
Yes, it's the same definition, or the new revised definition is used for the EFA, so it's your students who are Medicaid, homeless, in foster care, SNAP, and it's a long list, but yes, that's what this.
Thank you.
Anything else from Mr. Rainwater? Thank you so much.
thank
have
you.
your
And please, if you
report.
have any questions, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to work with you.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
We're now moving to public comment, and we do have one person signed up for public comment, and that will be Mr. Christopher Fox.
This is my fourth appearance.
Let me give you some directives. We appreciate your interest in public education. You'll be allotted 5 minutes for your comments, and since we're hearing your comments for the first time today, it's our policy to accept your comments as information. If we have questions or need additional information, we will contact you at a later date, and thank you for understanding our procedures. Thank you, sir.
This is my fourth appearance and direct request to the State Board of Education for a public hearing regarding the forgeries to my transcript that have been published by the Office of Educator Effectiveness. Mr. Jones, I want to thank you for your June 21st letter directing me to grant permission to the Office of Educator Effectiveness to contact the state-controlled Williamsburg County School District to have my evaluation records deleted from my transcript. Unfortunately, I must decline your directive because I have asked the State Department to ask Williamsburg on my behalf already for the past 3 years. And Mr. Joseph Tadlock, Ms. Lila Tolman-Sanga, and Deputy General Counsel Scott Winburn have all directed me to resolve this issue locally. I obtained the services of attorney Samantha Albrecht in December of 2017. She resolved this issue with the Williamsburg County School Board of Trustees, the superintendent, and their attorney in January of 2018 until Mr. Winburn intervened and my records have remained unchanged. Mr. Winburn then went on to threaten to suspend my credentials for refusing to participate in a 5th annual Summative 2 evaluation that I've already passed in 2007 and 2016 as a certified educator. On June 13th, 2018, he informed me that I was not required to repeat the evaluation because I obtained sufficient amount of passing evaluations. On July 27, 2018, Mr. Winburn formally upheld the 2015 evaluation from Williamsburg County, and the State Department has continued to publish this forged contract level for the past 4 years, although it is invalid because it was not certified that year. Deputy Superintendent Kathy Hazelwood has retaliated against my request for a public hearing by threatening to have me arrested. The security here at the State Department has informed the Columbia Police that I was seeking suspension in order to facilitate a lawsuit against the State Department. And on July 15th, Ms. Hazelwood informed me that the 2015 evaluation is invalid because I was not certified, and the State Department has continued to publish this to my credentials. I have made repeated requests to have it moved directly to Williamsburg County and the Office of Educator Effectiveness. The reply has been mandating Lexington 4 to place me at an annual 1 and annual 2 contract that exceeded the 4 annual contracts permitted by the ADEPT statute. Lexington 4 has published a false contract level of an annual 3 for 2015 and a false contract level of annual 4 summative for 2018, and I have never been offered those contracts. The Office of Educator Effectiveness mandated me to repeat the annual 1 and annual 2 levels, and Lexington 4 is still being allowed to publish these forgeries to my transcript. I've been treated like garbage by every school system that I worked at. I've been denied hearings. I've been threatened for arrest for trying to follow the law by Ms. Hazelwood. I just want a fair opportunity to have the contracts that I signed reviewed, have them published accurately and no longer forged to my transcript, to review the forged evaluation from 2015 and 2018. And if y'all believe that I failed in those dossiers, I'll go about my business and not try to pursue this career again. I've been on 3 interviews. I have not been able to obtain employment in my chosen profession of education. I'm a human being, and I just want to be treated fair and follow the law. That's all I've been trying to do. I never came here and threatened anybody. I never raised my voice, and the reply is a threat from Mr. Winburn that I'm going to be suspended for not taking an evaluation that he tells me I don't have to take anymore, and I have to be threatened with arrest just for requesting a hearing. And I don't know whatever hostility you'll have against black people or black men, but I thought that we were about the business of educating South Carolina's children, and that's all I've done for the 10 years that I've been employed in South Carolina public school classrooms. So can y'all just tell me, can you please show me the proviso that y'all are using to deny me a hearing? Because I have 2 published failures on my transcript that I have to answer on every application to admit that I've.
Mr. Fox, your time has expired. We do thank you for your comments. If we have any questions or need to contact you, we'll do so at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you.
For our state board items, we'll now be moving to our committee reports. We'll begin with policy and legislative, which will be me. And we did have 1 item to come before us for approval, and it is for changes to our rules of governance as it relates to items being separated or removed from the consent agenda. I'm just going to read the state board rule. The chair shall, don't do that. Just read the number.
Could I speak for them?
Certainly. If you'll give your attention to Ms. Hazelwood.
Everyone has a copy. So you had the original draft in your not mail out, but your emails from last week. So P&L, Policy and Legislative Committee took this up at its 9 o'clock meeting, and they made a change to the draft that you would have already reviewed prior to coming to today's meeting. The change to that draft is in yellow, is highlighted on your draft. So it's not on the computer, it should be at your desk. And I'm sorry, I don't think, Mr. Whittemore, there's so many papers,
use
I
mine.
know. Here.
I have one here, somebody can
Yes.
have. Here. Get past mine.
So that's good. They've got it.
Okay.
They've got it. So that is the change. So yes, Chair Gamble is going to read I'm sorry.
okay.
I'm just completely. The change,
just
the
the change.
proposed change. You'll see that it's a strike through and an underline. The strike through is going, the underline is the new.
So just read the change. Okay, any board member may object to an item placed on the consent agenda during the applicable committee report. Following each committee report, the board chair will ask if a board member objects to the placement of the applicable item or items on the consent agenda. If an objection is raised to an item, the item shall be considered for action. The item shall be considered after action is taken on the consent agenda relative to the items where no objection was raised. So, just for clarification, each committee, when committees meet, they place items on the consent agenda. When they come to us at full board, in the past, we have decided to accept those items on the agenda as submitted by those committees. In the future, if there's an objection to an item placed on the consent agenda, we're asking that a board member raise that objection during the applicable committee report. So for example, if there's an objection to something from P&L, you need to say so, and the chair will be directed. If anyone has any objection to that item being placed on the consent agenda, you need to do it then, not after we've gone through the entire slew of committee reports. Just want to make that clear. So what was changed this morning during P&L committee is what you see highlighted in yellow, just a directive from the board chair to make sure to ask if anyone has any objection to an item that has been placed on the consent agenda.
And this is for first reading and can't be on the consent agenda. So this is a first reading, will be taken up now. And we'll return for a second reading at our September meeting.
Any questions?
So just for clarification, you're saying that the objection needs to occur during the committee meeting?
No.
Okay, all right.
During full board,
Full board,
at
okay.
the time in which that committee chair is presenting those items. So if there's an objection to what that committee has placed on the consent agenda, you need to do that right after that committee has presented their report, not after we've gone through the entire list of committee reports.
Madam Chair, will you explain for those of us that knew what happens to the item if it is taken off the consent agenda? What's
Okay,
the
if it's
next step?
taken off the agenda after we've gone through the committee reports, we will address those that were not objected to, that were placed on the consent agenda, and then review that item separately. So it will be attended to, just not with the items collectively on the consent agenda.
And Madam Chair, for clarification, with Dr. Green's question, it's, nothing prohibits you from notifying the committee during the committee meeting that you're opposed to something being on the consent agenda, but it needs to officially be done during the committee report.
Correct. And I think it's to address, for example, we're not all in the same committee meeting. So if you're on another committee, but you have an objection to something being placed on the consent agenda that was handled by another committee, your time to address that would be during the full board meeting when that committee makes their report. So that's to rectify that situation. Anything further? Then that is my report. Well, now,
Is the
we
motion
need
in
to
order?
approve it. We need a motion for the first reading for this particular item.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor by sign of aye? Aye. And opposed? Good. Thank you. That is my report. Let's move on to Dr. Gamble.
Yes, Madam Chair. The Education Professions Committee had 3 items, 2 for information and 1 for action. The 2 informational items came from Coastal Carolina and Columbia College. They have decided that they will take advantage of the current regulations, which will allow them to certify folks in one area for middle level certification. And the information was presented to us by Jacelyn Jackie Walsh. Okay. And any questions about that? Okay, and the item for, the action item came from Winthrop University. In 2018, Winthrop University submitted a proposal to the South Carolina Department of Education, Office of Educator Services, to create an endorsement in ESOL, and they submitted letters of support from York School District 3 and 4, as well as Lancaster School District. They worked with the folks in the State Department's Office of Educator Services and developed a program of study for teachers to help them to better address the needs of ESOL learners. And the Educator Service Department here at the State Department looked at it, worked with them, and decided to ask us to approve it. After listening to the recommendations from Ms. Hipp, we approve that item, and we approve it to be placed on the consent agenda.
Just for clarification, ESOL stands for English as a second language or other language.
English for
English
speakers of
for
other
speakers.
language.
Say it again.
English for speakers of other languages.
Other languages. Thank you so much. Any questions for Dr. Gamble?
And that item was placed on the consent agenda.
I do have one question in reference to 2 and 3. The modifications as far as the 2 different institutions for Coastal and Columbia, did they make the same changes, or were there some differences in how they're handling the middle level education?
The same.
It's the same, okay. Let's now hear from, I recognize Mr. Bootson. Oh, did I skip one? I'm sorry, Dr. Downs, I missed one.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Standards and Learning and Accountability Committee met this morning, and we had one item on our agenda, and that was for information. But we did begin our meeting by welcoming our new board member to our committee, Mr. Stephen English. So we welcomed him and welcome you again. This morning, our information item came to us from Dr. Mathis, along with Dr. Moore, and they presented the multi-tiered system of support. That is a legislative requirement, and at this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Mathis to present that to us.
Dr. Downs and Chair Jones. There were 10 of you in our committee meeting, so we'll give an abbreviated version of our PowerPoint. As we start, several of them in the committee meeting today asked for the hard copies of the documents, so you should have the PowerPoint, the framework for MTSS, and a quick study of MTSS there provided for you. I'll begin by saying this work is a collaborative work across our agency to provide support to districts as they provide supports to students. In May 2018, this came into, this was legislatively approved, and we're to have full implementation beginning this school year 2019-2020. Several years ago, I think maybe this bill had its beginning, and you may have known it at that time as the dyslexia bill. But this bill takes into learning disabilities, or not learning disabilities, instructional issues that students may have beyond dyslexia and any problems they may have in the classroom. You'll see a focus in this of kindergarten through second grade, and through a screening and monitoring process, and that goes hand in hand with our goal of making sure that as many students as we can get, or all of our students, are at grade level by the end of third grade. Another thing that you will see with this is it supports just good classroom instruction, which is paramount, that Tier 1 instruction that the teachers provide students. We had a pilot program last year where we had 2 pilot groups, and we had a little over 30 districts participate in the pilot program. What we found with this is, like any student coming into a classroom, they come at different places. And so our districts are different places with implementing multi-tiered systems of support. And our goal is to fully support them at whatever place they are. Today is just a quick overview of the MTSS framework and process. The goal here is to give you that overview. Next month we'll be back because you will need to approve a template for reporting. So we didn't want to do all of that one time. We wanted to make sure you had time to understand what the system is about. So what is MTSS in South Carolina? There are a couple of key words in this. It's continuous improvement framework. And so continually in this cycle, we screen students, we take the data, the results from those screenings, and we progress monitor them on a weekly basis to determine if the instruction that we have or performing or presenting in that classroom is making a difference. And so with that, it is one of the strongest pieces of this is it is a problem-solving decision-making process, because as you get those results, not all students are at the same place. They come with some of their difficulties for different reasons. It could be academic, it could be social, it could be emotional. And so as we problem solve to meet the needs of the students where they are and then support them in the next steps. So this is very much a personalized approach to helping students reach grade level. The vision clearly for South Carolina MTSS is to improve Tier 1 instruction. And you've heard that probably many times from our office as we work to make sure that students are college and career ready. It's about improving the instruction in Tier 1, that classroom instruction, which will cause for fewer interventions and better results for our students. But you can see it as a whole child approach, academic, social, and emotional supports for our students.
Would you call on him? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And Tier 1 is the level of instruction that everybody gets.
Everybody gets in the classroom.
All right.
So, yes, Tier 1 is everybody in the classroom receiving instruction. Oftentimes there's a Tier 2 intervention where students may be in their classroom in small groups, and so it's another level of support. And then Tier 3 is oftentimes beyond the classroom where it's more intense support. So that instruction that everybody gets every day, we want to strengthen that to our best ability. And so, of course, the mission of all of this is to make sure that our students graduate college and career ready. That can't just happen at high school. That has to happen, start in early childhood in grades K1 and 2, and as they're on that path. Just going to go to a couple of slides here that that summarize really what this framework is all about. And in the center of this wheel is equity. It's equity for all students. And as we support that, as the spokes that support that hub of that wheel, we want to make sure that we have high-quality instruction for every student. There are lots of data points that classroom teachers have, but they need to strategically use those that matter the most to make those good decisions. Also, good teachers collaborate with others in the school to make sure that everyone that touches that child is providing the best learning environment. And out from that is a strong core instruction, that Tier 1 instruction, but also any support that may need to accompany that. The outside of the wheel are 6 categories that support MTSS, and it begins with leadership. It begins with school leadership, quality instructional leadership, how teachers and leaders in that school communicate and collaborate together about quality instruction. Our goal is to always build capacity of that classroom teacher to make good data-based problem-solving decisions. May not always be academic data. It may be attendance. It may be behavior. All those things we take into consideration. And then there's a tiered model. So we were discussing earlier that Tier 1 support in the classroom, the Tier 2 with small group interventions, and then the Tier 3 as we move beyond that and more intense interventions. And then making sure that the data we're looking at is the right data. And is it giving us the results that we need? So continuously evaluating the data that we're using. I would like to introduce you to Dr. Quincy Moore. Quincy Moore is a retired superintendent from Cherokee County Schools. And when we started this process, I very much leaned on her support to help us through this process. And so she's going to walk you through the next phases of this.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So let me just pick up and sort of reiterate some of the things that Dr. Mathis has already said, just because I think it bears that much importance. So what is MTSS? When you hear the acronym, you know, what is it? Well, first of all, it's a prevention framework. It's an opportunity for a school district to put processes in place and look at what they're doing for their students in that good classroom instruction. What do the students need? And it's for all students. If you look at that second bullet, it supports all the kids, not just the ones that need enrichment, not just the ones that are special needs, but it's for all kids. That third bullet, it's flexible. We want to personalize this process to meet the needs of the district. We sent out a memo in June about the law and about what's required for districts in this upcoming school year, and I have probably spoken to somewhere around 30 districts. And I can tell you that no district has had the same processes in place. So we're trying to be flexible for the school districts and customized to meet their own needs, meet them where they are. It's a collaborative process. It's team-based so that you've got more heads looking at a problem than just one. It's not for one single person to try and solve. It's a collaborative process. It's data-driven, using lots of different multiple data points, triangulating that information and trying to figure out the best solution, the best intervention for each student. And then it's a framework that can assist with special ed students, but it's not a special ed issue or initiative. And then I added this last bullet, is simply about good teaching. We want to improve. If you go back and you think about what Dr. Mathis just said about the vision of MTSS, it's to improve Tier 1 instruction. So what is it not? Just the converse of those statements that I just said. It's not a program. It's not a curriculum. It doesn't come in a box. It's not an end-all solution. It is a process that districts are putting in place to meet the needs of the students. It's not just for struggling students with disabilities. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not the responsibility of one teacher. It's not based on unreliable data or assumptions. It's based on research-based practices. And it's not a pre-referral process for special ed. Finally, I added this bullet. It's not something else to do. I know there's lots and lots of things that teachers have issues with these days. This is not something else that they have to do. In fact, I've been very delighted when I've taken these calls from school districts that if they think they're not down the road with MTSS, they really are. It's just about getting that common language and understanding where they are in this process and getting the common language so that they see that they are doing right by what this law says and by students. So just quickly about the law, it's Act 213. As Dr. Mathis said, it went into effect May 2018. We did some piloting in the spring with professional development, but now the rubber meets the road for this school year. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the department's responsibility is and what the district's responsibility are. So two things the State Department had to do was provide guidance, support, and professional development. So we placed at your seat a copy of the framework. It's an 80-page document, which sounds a little scary, but 40 pages are pretty much the guts of the document. The other 40 pages are templates. It's a self-assessment model for a district to take this document, figure out where they are, and then move forward. Real easy to read. We had some folks from Florida, the Center for Reading Research, that we've been working with on a number of things to look at it, and they gave very, very high marks to it, which we felt comfortable because they work with a lot of states in the Southeast. The other piece that the State Department must do is provide professional development opportunities. We have those slated for the fall, these 4 different categories. We've tried to meet the cohorts that went through the pilot programs 1 and 2, where they are, and move them forward, and then we tried to pick the other 50 up and move them ahead as well. So it was kind of a dual job there, but we have professional development opportunities planned in the fall. They're already signing up for those. They're regional meetings, face-to-face meetings, where they can collaborate with other districts. They're virtual models, and then we're also going to do some recordings that we place on the website so that districts can use those at will. So different combinations to meet the needs. The other requirements from the law is that the Learning Disorders Task Force that is clearly identified who is to serve on that task force in the law had to choose universal screeners because districts will be required to screen all kindergarten students and first grade students 3 times this school year. So that task force developed these 4 criteria. They worked all school year last year, had 4 meetings, and developed 4 criteria. The screener's got to be less than 10 minutes. It must screen for dyslexia and have the ability to progress monitor. It must contain normative data with data cut points. And then it also, oh goodness, it also must measure all of these skills in kindergarten and first grade. We put second grade there just as some guidance as well if students need to be screened as well in second grade as a result of getting in this process. They identified 8 screeners, and the law said that they must at least choose a screener that is at no cost. So in that list of 8, there are 2 that are free. The others are at a cost. This is a unfunded mandate. So there are 2 free screeners. And again, as I said, you have to screen all kindergarten and first grade students this year 3 times. And then you need to form a team and analyze the data. You not just screen, but then what do you do once you get the data back and how do you move forward? If there is a student at risk, the district obviously, and I'm again delighted to tell you that when we talk to districts, these are the things that they're already doing. They notify the parent. They give the parent resources, materials to help the student with whatever issue that they are having. They provide the student with interventions at the school level, and then they follow and monitor and evaluate how that student's done after a certain period of time. The last piece is that at the end of the school year, districts will have to report information back to the department, and the things that will be in that document that you will look at next month will be identification of the tool that they used. What is the screening tool that they used? What PD did they provide? What professional development opportunities did they provide after the things that they saw with the data that they collected? The number of students that they screened and the number that were identified. The types of interventions that they offered to the students, And then over time, there will be a request for longitudinal data. Obviously not this first year because it is first year in place. One thing that I want to say to you is, one thing that I've heard clearly is when I've spoken to districts is, okay, Quincy, I don't have one of these screeners on the list, so what do I do here? And so what we are telling them is this. I don't think it was the intention of the task force ever to have a limited number of screeners. They were tasked with choosing, some of which had to be free. They developed criteria and did so. So what I'm saying to the districts is in all 30 calls, there's no same process in place for these districts, which is good. And so I have said to them, you need to take the criteria, you need to measure that against what you were doing, take whatever processes, whatever products, whatever suite of tools that you're using, and if you feel comfortable, then there's going to be an appeals process that you can say, here's what we're doing, do we meet the criteria? That's coming off a little later in the fall. And so what I think is going to happen is this. I think that Dr. Mathis has a lot of credibility with districts. And I think they see this as not something that is being put upon them. I think they see it as, an opportunity to really look at what they're doing, and they may realize that maybe what they were using isn't the right thing. Maybe what they were using is the right thing. But I think that's what we're going to find moving forward. So, have any questions for me? Yes, sir.
80% of students meeting the benchmark, that's the examined at the school level standard, 80%. Is that disaggregated?
So you will use your screener to determine if 80% of the students are on grade level, if you will.
Okay, so, but if 100% of short kids are on grade level and 20% of tall kids aren't on grade level, even though it might work out that 80% of all kids are on grade level, do we still have to deal with the 20% that aren't on grade level? Maybe I should have used 100% and 60%.
Okay. So, obviously we'd love it if 100% of the students.
Right.
Okay, so your Tier 1 instruction, by and large, should at least capture 80% of the students, okay? The Tier 2 usually is somewhere between maybe 5, 10, 15% of the students that might need some kind of intervention, whether that's maybe that's peer-to-peer coaching, maybe that's additional assignments, maybe that's just as easy as moving them to the front of the room. Then if those, you put those interventions in place, and after an amount of time, 10 days, 20 days, you look at that student again. Hopefully, you've captured what is going on and you move them back into Tier 1. If not, that student may need Tier 3. Tier 3 is much more intensified intervention.
I guess what I'm asking is 80% of all kids, and it's also 80% of tall kids and 80% of short kids and 80% of boy kids and girl kids and black kids and white kids. It's got to be 80% of each of those. We can't just say 80% of all kids when we're leaving this subgroup behind, right?
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Is that?
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
It's 80% of the students. You're saying 80% of every subgroup. And you're asking me, I'm trying to answer you with not.
Yeah, I didn't ask the question very well, but.
So the goal is that every kid is addressed.
Right.
No one is left without the level of instruction and support.
Okay, all right. And that's the way this is designed to go. I got it.
So it is, every kid needs a little something different, so you personalize it to meet them where they are, and then monitor to see that week after week if the instruction for that student is making a difference. If it's not, you change something.
Okay. Can I ask another question?
Sure.
This morning, before I had to rudely leave, I'm sorry, I had a meeting of my own I had to run. It was mentioned that we're going to test kindergartners and first graders 3 times a year. Do we quit, I say test, we're going to screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we quit screening after first grade?
Oftentimes, what I am finding, The law requires that, but I am finding that.
Requires that we stop?
No, sir.
Okay.
That we do kindergarten and first grade.
Right, and then after first grade, do we stop?
I am finding that some schools are screening all the way through elementary school.
Okay.
So the law requires kindergarten, first grade, but I'm not finding that to be the practice. I am finding that schools are screening through elementary school to make sure they're capturing things.
And we know that third grade threshold that we're trying to get to. So it's second grade, so if screening isn't needed, if they're moving along grade level, you would say not.
I was just thinking about what we're learning from Read to Succeed. That would certainly indicate.
Mr. Boutson, can you speak into your microphone?
I'm sorry.
And Dr. Mathis, if you're going to speak, you need to stand up at the podium, please.
Well, I think I made my point there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further for our presenter? Dr. Moore, thank you. Thank you so much. And we have some for approval.
Madam Chairman, I do want to say that this was presented to our committee as information.
So we don't have to take any action. Thank you so much, Dr. Downs. Chair now recognizes Mr. Boutson for Innovation and Finance.
Thanks. Can you all hear me on this? All right. This thing is supposed to be automatic where you don't have to push a button or anything, and I
You
still
don't have
can't
to push anything.
make it work. Never mind. The committee, the Innovation and Finance Committee, had 5 items on its agenda today, 3 for action, 2 for information. The action items, one had to deal with an approval for supplemental instructional materials for the South Carolina High School Credential Course. We received a report that recommended what those were supposed to be, and so we send those along to you with our recommendation that we, as a board, approve those. We had another recommendation for instructional materials, this time involving the social studies curriculum for grades 3 through 5. And we likewise send those forward to you for, with our recommendation for approval. And then we had a really interesting, not that the others weren't interesting, but this was particularly interesting in that Anderson County School District 5 wants to sell some property that it has. And you'd think they could just go sell it, but no, they got to come ask us if they can do it. And so we had an interesting discussion about that, and we send that forward to this body, recommending that we give approval to them to sell their property. This is a great story to hear over a beer, I think, but
no beer today.
Since we don't have any. One of the information items we had to do with our regular report that we get from Ms. Williams, the Chief Financial Officer, about how we are just spending tons and tons of money on the State Board of Education. But yet again, one more month comes and we don't have to go pick up cans on the side of the road to be able to support our efforts here on the State Board. So that was good. The other information item we got concerning school safety initiatives. And given what's going on in the world today, it doesn't seem like you can turn on the 6 o'clock news or pick up a newspaper and read where somebody hadn't picked up a gun and walked in someplace and shot people, including schools. And so our recommendation, even though this is just an information item, is that that you all ask Ms. Moore to come back, Ms. Moore being the Director of the Office of Student Intervention Services, to give us a more thorough briefing on all the ins and outs of school safety and security, because there are a number of them. And it was informative to those of us that were present today. We think it would be useful to everybody to have it, so that would be our recommendation. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Bootson. All your items were placed on the consent agenda.
Yes.
Okay. The chair now recognizes me in place of Mr. Brennan for the ELC Licensure Committee. We had 6 items that we looked at as full board ELC. We did ratify those at the committee meeting, and they were taken care of. So that is my report. Do we need to take action on those? No, we already ratified. Let me scroll down. We're not going to act on the consent agenda. The consent agenda has been handed out. If you don't have it, take time and pull out that agenda. And we need a motion to approve.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
Mrs. Howard has made a motion to approve the agenda, and it was seconded by Dr. Gamble. All in favor of the motion, by sign of aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda carries. We do have South Carolina Board of Education reporting for action. We have SBE 01, and Ms. Hazelwood will present.
If it please the board, I dropped the ball. This matter came before you in April for first reading and then fell off my radar and definitely fell off yours then. So this is for second and final reading. This was to remove a process, a very cumbersome process to hear bus driver cases. We heard two different bus driver cases, and Molly had to convene 2 different panels, and it's just a real event. So this is removing it, removing this rule completely from the duties of the state board. It wasn't one of your duties to begin with. The statute that said it was your duty didn't even mention the state board. So it is the state superintendent's duty to convene a hearing. And there is a new policy in place for any bus driver or safety person in the school bus district office in place now. No one is losing any due process rights. It's just in the right. They're on the right seat of the bus now, this rule. So I would ask that you approve for second reading the removal of this rule.
So moved.
Yes, you need
All right,
a
we have a motion for approval from Mr. Bootson. Do we have a
Second.
second? We have a second for Dr. Gamble. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have the action. All right, we have 3 items for information, and I see is Dr. Dixon with us? Hi. She's going to give us reports from Florence County, District 4, Allendale, and Williamsburg counties.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I would not be myself if I didn't have something funny to tell you before I start, right?
Right. Correct.
So I always tell educators now, this August marks my 20th year in education. It's hard to believe, but I always tell them, to remember you share a common future with your students. They might be your EMT. They could bring you your medicine in a nursing home. And they may be the person who repairs your HVAC system. So today I got to share a space with one of my former teachers, Quincy Moore. So when I was in high school, she was my high school basketball coach and Algebra 2 teacher, and I actually behaved in her class. So I think that's kind of funny, and also just a nice coincidence. I spent all last Wednesday in Timmonsville, and sometimes I wish you all could be with me because these reports I do are fairly boring, and they don't do justice to the work and progress that's been made in the last 3 years. I was just overjoyed. Went to lunch at Trulux. If you've never had Trulux in Timmonsville, they have great seafood. I had the flounder plate. I normally get the shrimp plate. But we spent an entire day together planning for professional development and putting the buttons and pins on the work that we're going to do this school year. Enrollment is up at Johnson Middle School and Brockington Elementary School, about the same at the high school, but we are very, very proud of the fact that it seems many of our students who had been choosing to go to school in neighboring districts are returning to Timmonsville. And we had to hire some additional teachers due to the enrollment growth. So that's something that I think we need to recognize them for. We are continuing. We're continuing our shared services plan there with Florence School District 1, managing some of the district operations, and Florence School District 2 supporting us in the areas of maintenance, facilities, and operations. We have an increased number of students that will be participating in CTE courses at Florence 1, and a few of our students will be attending the Continuum, where they'll be participating in the HVAC program. And I want to give a special thanks to the transportation office here, who I met with this morning, who has worked very diligently to help us make that happen. So thank you to Gary Fast and his team. The district's focus for this school year is improving the culture and changing lives, one experience at a time. We're doing an expanded focus on partnerships, and the goal is to provide students with a variety of experience in the areas of STEM and visual and performing arts. Through these partnerships, our students are going to have continued exposure to robotics, mechatronics, drone, coding, app design, photography, media broadcasting, cooking, and guitars. And one of our big tasks when we got to Timmonsville was bringing more opportunities to the students, and we've been able to do that. Open house will be held this Thursday on August 15th. Our professional development focus is around professional learning communities, helping the district identify, I've been supporting them, helping them identify the 5 powerful practices that will serve as the focus areas for more effective instruction. Those practices include clarity of learning targets, effective instructional planning, pacing and delivery, assessment design, questioning, and feedback. That will be done throughout the year, and we'll continue working on that. I'm proud that we only have, I signed off on 2 hires yesterday. We have 1 special education teaching position in Timmonsville, and that has been due vacant, yes. And that has been due to the hard work of Tanya Addison and Teresa Gamble, who are serving as principals there, and I'm very proud of that. That's a hard job in many places, but especially in some of our rural places in South Carolina. The first day for our students is August the 19th. Teachers returned yesterday, and the district is following in the footsteps of Allendale, who seems to be making things competitive and having their official back-to-school bash on Saturday, August the 24th. That concludes my report on Timmonsville. In Allendale, Dr. Gilmore is presenting on the work that we've done there and the progress we made with Advanced Ed today, but they've already held their back-to-school bash, and their first community meeting will be held on August the 26th from 6 to 8. Their focus this year is about stronger together. How do we go deeper with the things that we've put in place and sharpen those areas that still need work? 1 vacancy at the middle school level. We had that almost completely done, and we had a teacher. Sometimes, in our rural districts, teachers get other offers that are more attractive, and they change their minds before we can get their actual signature on the line. So that's what happened there. So we have 1 vacancy at the middle school. And they had several successful summer programs. Their back-to-school bash was on August 3rd. They distributed over 550 book bags, had a fabulous turnout. On August the 7th, they hosted August the 2nd, a Reading Under the Stars event, where every child and parent that attended was able to take 1 book home. So really focusing on that literacy there. The partnership with Georgia Pacific is continuing to grow. We have an additional student now who will be working in the apprentice program that makes for the 3rd student to participate in that program. We're very excited about that. If you've not driven through Allendale, you should drive through downtown. There are some beautiful banners that say Allendale Forward, sponsored by the school district, collaboration between the county, the school district, and the city. I'm so proud of the work that Dr. Margaret Gilmore has done as our interim superintendent and her staff. Hats off for their fabulous commitment and their stick-with-itness. Staying with it through all of the tough times. Their district convocation was yesterday. Senator Brad Hutto was their guest speaker. And their professional development this year is focusing on literacy intervention. Yes.
Go ahead, Madam Chair. I wanted to ask you to repeat one thing when you finish about Allendale, excuse me.
Okay.
Okay. And open house will be held on August 15th and 16th.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
if I
ma'am.
may. And where did you say Dr. Gilmore is today? If you'd be a little more explicit about that, so we can all clap.
Our office has been working with Advanced Ed for the last 3 years to conduct needs assessments in our low-performing schools. They've helped us to be able to not only prioritize improvement areas, but also progress monitor for those improvement areas to make sure we are making headway and gains in terms of student achievement. Dr. Gilmore was asked to represent South Carolina along with two folks from our office, Donna Manning and Tina Jameson, are co-presenting with her about the work we have done in working with low-performing schools and implementing our South Carolina School Improvement Framework.
At the National Advanced Ed Conference in
Yes.
Atlanta.
Yes, at the National.
Okay.
That concludes my report on Allendale. In Williamsburg, Dr. Wilder, my good, dear, best friend, who I talk to almost every day about something, was the guest speaker and conducted her community meeting for August at New Jerusalem United Methodist Church, where she gave the community an update on district happenings and goals. The curriculum and instruction staff held a leadership retreat this summer for over the course of 2 days. They, too, have a strong literacy focus for the 2019-2020 school year, are going to be specifically focusing on professional development to be offered to staff, including their special educators, to support literacy achievement with their students. In Williamsburg, which I did not anticipate, but have learned a great deal about what it means to be surrounded by other counties rather than just being kind of on your own or on the state border, we have 4 core subject area vacancies and 1 special education teacher vacancy and about 10 that are in the related arts areas, art, music, PE, speech therapy, school psychologists. So about 5 in terms of classroom teachers. It's very difficult because they are surrounded by Horry County, Georgetown, and there are lots of other places, and young kids like the beach. So we're still working on that very diligently. There's been a lot of work on that. The first day for students is August 19th. Staff is back. And we'll have a convocation program on the 15th, and the 16th will be the district-wide professional development day. One of the things Dr. Wilder did this summer and was committed to that we didn't talk about a lot is making some capital and maintenance improvements. And lots of work was done over the summer at a variety of schools in the district, and it was much, much needed. It included painting, carpet replacement, HVAC unit replacement, and roof repairs. I think it's important to note that they have along with their literacy focus, the technology department is organizing for this school year a community outreach project. Well, they will work with parents and provide free basic computer training to parents in the community free of charge to help support that family engagement. And finally, I do want to say congratulations to Janae Dorsey, a senior at King Street High School, who's been selected to receive the highly coveted Palmetto Fellows Scholarship, a merit-based program established in 1988 to recognize the most academically talented high school seniors. So we're really proud of Janae Dorsey at King Street High School. So thanks to Dr. Wilder and her staff and all of their hard work.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. I appreciate
Dr. Dixon, let me ask you one question. So are there a total of 10 vacancies at Williamsburg or 5 classrooms and 10 additional fine arts vacancies?
5 classrooms and 10 additional fine arts and speech therapists, school psychologists.
15 total vacancies?
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I know I spoke with Dr. Wilder late last week, and I think on the related arts, they are looking at using the Auntie Karen program. Is that correct?
Yes, we are looking at using an artist in residence program, which would include local artists coming in and rotating among the schools and still giving the students an artist and a fine arts experience. Yes.
Yeah. It's not the ideal that we would want with a certified teacher there full-time, but they will have some exposure to the arts through that program. And there are other rural districts who are having to do that. We have a huge shortage in music, visual arts, as you know.
Thank you again. Any further? Yes, sir, Mr. Bootzon.
I was going to ask the superintendent, it came up briefly over lunch. Were you able to get a total number of vacancies so far?
No, I have not, but we will send that. Mr. Boutson has asked, unless someone in the staff knows this answer, do we know how many openings there are right now in school districts across the state? I meant to have asked Ryan before we came in. If I get that, we'll send it out to you.
Okay,
we should be. I know the media is very interested in that, and so we've been working on it. So thank you. And I'll check. Maybe he heard me, and he'll send me the answer to that over the phone.
Thank you, everyone, for your participation and attendance today. I would admonish you for something that we need to do for Mr. Whittemore has asked. He's asked me a while back to get a group photo of the board members, and I did not forget. So hopefully we'll get everyone who is a part of the board to be in attendance at our next month's meeting. So be cute, do whatever you need to do to make yourself fashionably fabulous so that we can take this picture and make this happen. Is there any other business to come before?
Madam Chair, I should have included very quickly, because this does involve the state board. On August the 1st, we received consolidation plans from 8 small districts in the state. There has been $50 million appropriated and 25% of that goes to helping districts with the cost of consolidation, equalizing salaries, buying software, those kinds of things. That has to be approved by the state board. We have received their requests. We're reviewing those now. It's probably going to be another month or two before we bring that to you, because we have $50 million and our requests were over $500 million. So we're working to see how we can consolidate some of those requests. But I wanted you to know that Hampton County, Hampton 1 and 2, Bamberg 1 and 2, Barnwell 19 and 29, that's Blackville and Williston, and Clarendon 1 and 3, Somerton and Turbyville turned in plans to consolidate during the next 2 to 3 years. So those are the districts that will qualify for that initial 25%. There are other districts, due to their poverty level, economic status, were eligible to ask for money of the other 75%. And again, the requests were all very reasonable, but total lots more money than we have. So, but you do have your responsibility is to approve that, and we will be bringing that to you in the next few months to work on that. But it's not an easy decision since there's so many requests. The districts: Hampton County 1 and 2, Bamberg County 1 and 2, Barnwell 19, which is the Blackville area, and Williston area 29, District 29. And then we go over to Clarendon County, Somerton 1, which is Clarendon 1, and Turbyville, which is Clarendon 3. Did I hit them all? Mm-hmm. Never thought I'd live to see it. And hats off to the leadership in those communities. This is bringing together boards. Their boards have met together. They have an initial timeline of how they'll pull this off. It will involve legislation, local legislation being introduced probably this next year, because that has to be done. And then they have an awful lot of work and very hard decisions to make, so it's not an easy process, but we'll be supporting them. We've already met with all of them here in this room, and the hard work is yet to be done, but thankfully they're willing to come to the table to see how they can run a more efficient district office. This is not about consolidating schools, but about consolidating the district offices and the board operations.
Is it accurate to say this is due, at least in part, to the suggestion and temptation by the legislature in terms of putting some money in it?
Absolutely.
Without ordering it?
Absolutely. There's no doubt the money brought the opportunity for some help in funding, brought these folks to the table. There's no doubt about that. So I'm asking.
The legislature hadn't ordered this. They just.
No, they said, but if you want to have a chance at this money, you must have your plan turned in by August 1st. So it's pretty brilliant.
Good.
And they responded, and There really, all of the districts under 1,500 except one participated in this. So I would say it worked. But now the hard work's there, so.
Thank you, Superintendent, for that information. If there's no other business to come before the board, I will remind you to turn in your travel vouchers before you leave. And if nothing else, be safe, travel safely back to your destination, and we are adjourned.